Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome. My name's Alison Stewart and I'm your host of this session of Cut the Crop. And today we've got FAR Senior Field Officer and Editor of Crop Action, Ben Harvey. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Alison.
And we're going to talk about our aphid monitoring programme. So for anybody that's been living under a bush for the past 2 or 3 years, tell us about FAR's aphid monitoring programme.
Thanks, Alison. So it started about 3 or 4 years ago. We started to put out sticky traps into selected aphid areas where there was out into cereal crops, just to monitor the patterns of aphid numbers in those crops. And over that time, we've slowly increased the number of paddocks and areas and regions that we've covered, so that we can keep a handle on not just the way that the numbers change through the season, but also from year to year. And then we can communicate that information to growers to assist them in making decisions about when to spray insecticide onto their crops. This has come from the program called A Lighter Touch, the main goal of which is to reduce those kinds of inputs. So the idea being that it saves the grower money and it also reduces the pressure on using too much insecticide, particularly in the environment where we may well have some sort of regulatory pressure on some of those chemicals, so those insecticide chemicals, so that we may even lose some of them in the future. So it's all just a way of just perhaps preparing for that as well, and also trying to put the message out there that it's a good idea to think about not just throwing on insecticides willy-nilly or a sort of calendar spraying kind of idea, but actually knowing what's out there in your crop and responding appropriately.
And so this is about the time, is it, that they should be putting them out?
So I've been in the process over the last 2 or 3 weeks of putting them out. I generally try to put out aphid traps once the crop is just beginning to emerge. That's the time when the data is actually useful. And I've also got some people in the North Island helping me out with this, and some growers. And then down in Southland, I've got Andrea Fox from Advanced Agriculture, who has been helping me out for the last couple of years. And she's sent me some this morning, actually, some traps that she'd put out into 4 paddocks around the region of Southland, whereas I'll cover South Canterbury and Canterbury, Mid-Canterbury.
So how do the growers access the information that we're collecting?
So at the moment, that information is all collated and put together into graphs, which are published in Crop Action and also on our website. And also FAR Weekly will also link to that data as well as Crop Action. In the future, we've just begun to work with Hort Plus to get the data into probably maybe up to a year away, but we'll be trying to get that data integrated into the weather platform that's on the FAR website, so that it can be seen at the same time as looking at what's already on the weather platform, which is it's called the aphid model, and it just models temperature, so that you can it shows the threshold for the temperature when aphids would be reproducing.
So at the moment, it's really just website, FAR Weekly, Crop Action, yes. But ultimately, hopefully, it'll all be integrated into the weather platform.
And that's underway. I think we just need to review that document and sign it, and then the work will start to happen. Okay. So you've been working with Hort Plus for the last couple of months. So this is all about, managing yellow dwarf virus, which the aphid is vectoring. That's right.
And the ultimate goal is to be able to monitor, the aphids so that you can understand whether you need to bring an insecticide spray in or whether you can rely on beneficials.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about that part of the picture yet, but beneficial insects are, we believe, a very important part of the picture that perhaps are sometimes neglected. even school children know that ladybirds love to eat aphids, but there's plenty of other ones out there as well. There's the brown lacewings and hoverflies, and the other insect which is important is the parasitic wasp, which lays its eggs inside live aphids, and which unsurprisingly they don't survive. And the traps that we monitor actually will catch these species, and we can take that into account when we're thinking about, is this aphid population getting out of control, or are there enough beneficial species there to keep it to the point where we think that an insecticide is not needed. And we do still tend to err on the side of caution, of course, but we're trying to get that data all together so we can be more confident. And it's an ongoing process, but perhaps we may say more about that in a minute, but if I've got time.
So the beneficials, are you reporting on those as well?
Yes, I should have said, yeah. So we don't really have any hard data on what that ratio should be, but it's part of the picture that we can take into account when we're making those decisions. Yeah.
So, but ultimately, will we have data that will indicate thresholds?
We hope so. I think that perhaps in my position, I'm not able to say for sure one way or another. These traps are very small. They're postcard sized and they're in very large paddocks. And trying to do any kind of statistical analysis on such a small number of insects in a very large area, I've read some things which suggest that could be problematic, and we will need to be careful, I think, as we try to be a bit more systematic about how we treat these numbers.
How many of you might not know the answer to this, but how many of the growers actually put out their own sticky traps?
There are a few. We'd like there to be more, and people can always contact us. So we're more than happy to help if they want to start doing it themselves. But the only ones that I know of are the ones that actually are part of our network and send in their numbers to me. So at the moment, I think I only know of a couple that do that. But there may well be more. I hope that there are. All of the equipment is easily purchasable and quite cheap. So.
I mean, and I guess, as consumer demands around reducing pesticides and showing, and being able to show that you are, sort of optimizing natural control, there is going to be a greater, what's the word, pressure on growers to have to show that they are doing these things. So, I mean, I guess the other thing is, we want to keep the beneficials there. So what about compatibility of the insecticides with the beneficials? Because that's the other key component.
Very much so. Yes, thanks for reminding me about that. That's a really important thing to remind growers of, is that, and I'm sure most of our listeners will be quite aware of this, but not all insecticides are created equal. And beneficial insects are something that we want to keep, and the aphids are the ones that we want to kill. And unfortunately, some of the cheaper ones, the cheaper insecticides, do more broad spectrum. Some of those products that contain the pyrethrins, things like that, and they'll kill the beneficials as well as the aphids. And we'd like to avoid that if we could. At the other end of the spectrum, we have things like pyrimacarb, which are very specific to aphids. And we know that all of those beneficial insects, as far as I know, better put a bit of a qualifier on that because I'm not 100% sure, but they certainly, many of them do survive pyrimacarb. And then there's ones in the middle which don't necessarily have on the label that they will that beneficials will survive, but we know from practice that a lot of them do. Things like Transform, I've seen Transform sprayed last season by a couple of our growers, and the week after I went back and I checked those traps, and the aphid numbers were way down to almost zero, but there were things like brown lacewings still flying around. So we know that those anecdotal stories are out there as well for those ones sort of in the middle. But yeah, it is really important, I think, that growers are at least aware of what they're doing and what they're spraying and what the effects are on those beneficial insects as well as the target.
And aphids. I mean, some of the companies, in the information on the products, they do indicate compatibility, with beneficials, and some don't.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of just having that as one of the things that, that you want to have a look at when you're making a decision. Because obviously efficacy against the pest is important, but if you can also sort of have a product that is not going to impact on your beneficials, then it's a bit of a win-win. Agreed.
Yeah, totally.
So what's going to be happening with the aphid program sort of for the rest of the year?
Okay, so as over the next couple of weeks, we'll finish putting sticky trap sites in place. I'll be out this weekend next, finishing that off, and then we'll be monitoring throughout the winter. We'll be entering a risk period. Well, we're in a risk period right now up until the numbers start to drop off. It's very warm out there today. So what we're expecting is that the temperature will drop, obviously, and the numbers of aphids will go down quite a lot. And through the winter, we'll be sort of doing a maintenance monitoring just to make sure that we don't have any nasty surprises. And then in spring, we'll be increasing the frequency of our monitoring as we enter the next risk period, which goes up to when cereals reach growth stage 32, after which studies seem to show that yield losses that are associated with those YDV symptoms are much less. Apart from that, we will be continuing. We've been talking to some folk at Oregon State University and the USDA in Oregon who have been doing quite a lot of work and seem to have a lot more resources to throw at this problem, and have some really interesting data that have come out of Oregon about aphids, particularly not just in cereals, but also in grass seed crops. And we're still in the process of figuring out how to best partner with them and how to learn from what they've discovered. I have actually got some traps in one grass seed crop just to have a look to see what we find. Normally we expect that endophyte in ryegrass especially will take care of aphids, but we don't know that 100%. So we're just going to have a little bit of a look because it's in a paddock that's just next door to one of the other ones that I'm doing, and it'll be just interesting to see what happens there. And we've got a meeting later this month with those Oregon researchers to talk about sort of partnering with them to try and answer some of these questions that we still have about aphids in New Zealand and how they're related to YDV infection. And there's just a lot of still unanswered questions. And the more that I find out in the 2.5 years that I've been involved in this program, the more questions I have, which is...
That's called science, isn't it?
It's an exciting place to be as a scientist, for sure, Alison.
So if you're a grower, it's just a matter of either doing your own monitoring with your own paddocks or using the information that FAR's got as a little bit of a proxy for what may be happening out there. That's
right. It's not ideal because, although we think it's pretty good, if you're somewhere near one of our monitor paddocks, we'll be close. But there are other things that can cause variation. The microclimate of where the paddock is, if it's on a hillside or south facing or something else. There are other things, but yeah, it's certainly a good place to start is having a look at our data, and then just you can go out into your own paddock as well, especially on a nice sunny day. Look under some of those tillers. And see if there's any aphids going on under there and make your own decisions. And we're also, we're always more than happy to provide advice and help if anyone wants to contact us.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks, Alison.
And thank you very much, growers. Have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.